It's crucial, therefore, that we see this question of abortion as more than a quantitative move, more than a politically expedient move. Abortion repeal is not a question of political expediency. It is part of something greater. It is historic that we are addressing ourselves this weekend to perhaps the first national confrontation of women and men. Women's voices are finally being heard, aloud, saying it the way it is about the question of abortion, both in its most basic sense of morality and in its political sense, as part of the unfinished revolution of sexual equality. This is a quote from Betty Friedan's speech that was captivating, Abortion, a Woman's Civil Right, and this was given at the first National Conference on Abortion Laws, Modification or Repeal in 1969. Friedan was an American activist and leader in the women's rights movement. Her later book, The Feminine Mystique, is credited with the beginning of the second wave of feminism. My name is Tiana Griggs, and today I will be speaking to you about Betty Friedan and her fight for the women's rights through her background, the rhetorical skills she used to persuade the audience, and the legacy she left behind. Betty Friedan was born on February 4th, 1921, in Peoria, Illinois. She attended Smith College and graduated in 1942 with a psychology degree. She became involved in politics, and she later became a reporter for the Federated Press. After this one career journey, she became a writer for the UE News. That just led to her politics interest to grow tremendously as she fought for labor and union rights, particularly for women. In the late 1950s, after becoming a housewife herself, Friedan began her influential book, The Feminine Mystique. This book tested the belief that women found fulfillment in basic housewife activities. She spent 5 years interviewing women and found most of them were unhappy with their lives and the limits put on them due to societal expectations of the roles women should have. This book was published in 1963, and it instantly grew with popularity, becoming a bestseller. The book led to many conversations all around the world to form and allowed women to feel like their frustrations were heard. It sparked widespread activism for gender equality. In the late 60s, Friedan helped found the National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws. This organization is still here today, but it is now known as NARAL Pro-Choice America. It is an organization that uses the political process to guarantee every woman the right to make personal decisions regarding the full range of reproductive choices, including preventing unintended pregnancy, bearing healthy children, and choosing legal abortion. That is a quote from their online mission statement. Betty Friedan's speech was one of persuasion. She used the three elements of persuasion, ethos, logos, and pathos, to convey her message. Ethos is achieved when the speaker demonstrates that they are a credible source of accurate information. Friedan's experience with women's rights, such as workplace rights, her book, The Feminine Mystique, and the organization now known as NARAL, she created for abortion rights, makes her a knowledgeable and credible source. Logos means the appeal to the audience's sense of reason or logic. To use logos effectively, the speaker uses facts and statistics. An example of Friedan using logos in her speech is when she talks about how women are portrayed. She says, women are portrayed as man-devouring, cannibalistic monsters, or else sex objects, and objects not even of heterosexual impulse, but of sadomasochism in the media. Pathos is used to appeal to emotion. To use pathos, the speaker must evoke certain emotions to feel what the speaker wants them to feel. Friedan opens her speech strongly. Women, even though they're almost too visible as sex objects in this country, are invisible people. Women who have a share in the decisions of the mainstream, of government, of politics, of the church, who don't just cook church supper but preach the sermon, who don't just look up the zip codes and address in the envelopes but make political decisions, who don't just do the housework of the industry but make some of the executive decisions. That is another quote from her speech, and it's an example of how she used pathos to leave the audience feeling the pain and the frustration of women. Friedan conveys her message to the audience by alluring them with her strong rhetorical skills. Two examples of rhetorical devices that she used are anaphora and metaphor. An anaphora is the repetition of words or phrases in a group of sentences, clauses, or poetic lines. She uses the device when she repeats, am I saying? For example, in her speech, she says, am I saying that women must be liberated from sex? Am I saying that women must be liberated from motherhood? Am I saying that women have to be liberated from men? By repeating this, it emphasizes the importance of a message. A metaphor is a figure of speech that directly refers to one thing by mentioning another. A metaphor that Friedan uses in her speech is, this is another quote from her speech, like a cancer cell living its life through another cell. Women today are forced to live too much through their children and husbands. This allows the audience to relate her message with an image that they can imagine. The two most influential works Betty Friedan left for the future of women's rights are her book, The Feminine Mystique, and Gnarled Pro-Choice America. Her book expressed the sexist belief that feminine women should not want to work, get an education, or have political opinions. She points out the sexism in the 50s and the 60s and how women were forced into the role of housewife. This book has remained significant in women's rights and is still a great read. Gnarled Pro-Choice America, started by Friedan, is continuing to this day and is dedicated to eliminating all laws and practices that would compel any woman to bear a child against her will. That is also from their online website. So I have now informed you of Betty Friedan, an American activist and leader in the women's rights movement. I talked about her background, the rhetorical devices she used, and the legacy that she still leaves behind for ongoing women's rights movements today. She was influential, and she paved the way for acts of feminism to follow her. Thank you so much for your time. I leave you with a quote from her powerful speech. In this confrontation, we are making an important milestone in this marvelous revolution that has begun long before any of us here were born, and which is still a long way to go. Thank you again.